Welcome to this month's Math Talk session. I'm Miranda Westbrook.
And I'm Kim Bolivar.
And we're excited that you're here to learn about modeling fraction by fraction division.
The purpose of today's session is to develop conceptual meaning for dividing a fraction by a fraction using the common denominator algorithm. We will also investigate mathematical reasoning for applying the invert and multiply procedure to dividing fractions.
I have a sample problem laid out here of 3/4 divided by 1/6. We are going to solve this problem by using the common denominator algorithm. 3/4 is equivalent to 9/12. If I start pulling these apart, I can see that these two are the same. If I look at 1/6, I know that 1/6 is the same as 2/12. So those are equivalent fractions. At the bottom of my board, I have replaced 3/4 with 9/12, and I have replaced 1/6 with 2/12 because those are equivalent problems. As I begin to solve the problem to find the quotient, I'm going to use my equivalent problem because now I have the common denominators at the bottom. I want to know how many 2/12 are in 9/12. So if this is 9/12, I'm going to start pulling groups to figure out how many groups of 2/12 are in 9/12. This is 2/12. Here's another group of 2/12. Here's another group of 2/12. Here's another group of 2/12. And then I have a 12th left over. I can see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups, and then I have a 12th. A common misconception for kids is that the quotient would be 4 and 1/12. This is actually inaccurate because 1/12 would be of the whole circle. In this situation, we're looking at the groups. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1/12 is actually one part of the group. So this would actually be a half. So the quotient would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and a half. Here I am showing 1/6. If I do another model, we want to know how many 3/6 are in 1/6. That's a little tricky for students to comprehend and understand. But if I draw out, so here is the 1/6 that I have, we want to think that we have 3/6. So if we're looking at this and we know that we have 1/6, we want to know how many 3/6 are in 1/6. So when we look at the whole model, we can see that 1/6 is actually 1/3 of the whole model. Therefore, the quotient is 1/3.
Awesome.
The following clip demonstrates the invert and multiply strategy for dividing fractions. The context of the problem centers around Cynthia's recipe for cookies. If Cynthia has 1 cup of sugar, how many batches of cookies can be made based on the amount of sugar needed for each batch?
We can see that this is still 1 cup of sugar, but this time the recipe calls for 2/3 of a cup of sugar. This gets a little more challenging for students because this time we have a portion of a recipe that can be completed. Therefore, if the recipe calls for 2/3 of a cup of sugar and we want to use our full cup, we have this much of the portion left. If we think about this in terms of improper fractions, we can see that this is 3/2 of the whole. Therefore, we can create one full recipe, and this section will do half of another. Therefore, Cynthia, with a whole cup of sugar, if she divides it by 2/3, she can make 3/2 of a recipe, and 3/2 is equal to 1/2. Cynthia's full cup of sugar was divided by 2/3 because the recipe called for 2/3 of a cup of sugar. 1 divided by 2/3 equals 3/2, which equals 1 1/2.
I love the way that you showed the blue that highlighted the difference of what's going on here and how it flipped and inverted. I also really love the way you can see the whole number division going on here. And I know that's a concept, because I've taught math, that students really need to see and visualize.
If we relate that to this problem, 3/4 divided by 1/6, we can use the identity property of multiplication, which says that we can multiply any number by 1 and still receive the same product. If we look at this problem, 3/4 divided by 1/6, we are multiplying by the reciprocal, which is 6/1. We know that that works to equal 1 by looking at Cynthia's problems. We determined that anytime we divided 1 divided by the number of cups of sugar she needed for the recipe, we got the reciprocal as the product. Therefore, 3/4 times 6 over 1 equals 18/4. Here I have it written out again. 3/4 times 6 over 1 equals 18/4, which equals 4 2/4, which is equivalent to 4 1/2.
Excellent.
For additional resources on modeling the division of a fraction by a fraction, see the 6th grade Georgia Frameworks task titled Dividing Fractions with Models and the formative assessment lesson titled Modeling Fraction Division. Thank you for tuning in to today's Math Talk session on modeling the division of a fraction by a fraction.